Hey there, friends. Brian King, the Mindset King here, coming to you live with another episode of The Mindset King. Today, I have the privilege of bringing on a young man who is really making waves in a positive way. How long have we known each other now, Tucker? What, a week, 2 weeks, maybe? Less, something like that? And he puts so much good quality content out there that I was able to see the kind of fire he's lit very quickly, and he's just knocked my socks off already. And I've been around the block as far as the speaking profession goes, as far as operating within the space of the autism and ADHD community. And this guy is a rock star. He's putting out some serious content, some serious energy. He shares his own journey with Asperger's growing up. And he and I are very similar in our thinking. You know, I'm comfortable saying that he is yet one another of my brothers from another mother. And I'm very proud and grateful that he has given us some time today. So welcome to the show, Mr. Tucker Beardon. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a blessing to be on your show.
Yeah, and I just want to jump right in and ask, how did you get here? You know, because Asperger's is one of those things that it's not well known anymore because the psychiatric community, in their infinite ignorance, decided to remove that term as a separate diagnosis from people along the autism spectrum. So in your experience, please tell the people that are watching and listening, what is Asperger's?
Okay, first of all, I do want to make one thing perfectly clear to the community you were just referring to. You can take the word Asperger's away from whatever you want to, but those of us who have Asperger's, we are Aspies. It is what we are at our core. It's our superpower. It's our gift. And if you think that changing a name is going to change anything, it's absolutely not. We will never call ourselves high functioning. We will never call ourselves a level 3 or whatever on paper that you put yourself. We are Aspies no matter what you put in your books. So I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. Asperger's is a neurological abnormality that hinders one's natural abilities to understand social cues as well as emotional responses. So I have trouble with sarcasm. I have trouble reading facial expressions. I actually focus on a person's energy. That's how I read people. I don't read them based off what their face tells me. I read them based off of how I feel from the electromagnetic pulses that their body is actually giving off. That's how I communicate with people. If you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper has Asperger's. He is.
Well, wait, the actor says, and this is important clarification because the people that created this show did a whole lot of covering their butt because they didn't want the criticism of the autism community if they got it wrong. So they didn't declare that he has Asperger's. But anybody that watches that character knows he has Asperger's.
Yes.
And Jim Parsons, the actor, said he plays Sheldon as though he has Asperger's. So they found ways to kind of get around it without being official. But I'm with you in that he is a wonderful demonstration of Asperger's.
And they in a few episodes, they didn't use the word Asperger's, but they basically put the definition on the line. There's actually an episode where Sheldon is sitting down with whoever one of the girlfriends of the other Aspies that are on the show, and she is sitting there talking about, I just wish that I was as smart as y'all and could do all this, and he goes, well, you know, you have something that we would give, like I would give anything in the world to have. And she thought he was joking at first, and he was like, no, I'm not. And they sit down on the couch, and he said, you know when people are laughing with you and not at you. You understand when someone's angry with you, and that's something I don't know how to do. And I'd give anything in the world to have that superpower that you have. And that was a very down to earth part of the show where Sheldon opens up and he goes, look, the intelligence is nice, but there is a downside to this. And that's the thing. And I'm not trying to boast on intelligence, but Aspies in general are generally intellectuals. It's due to the fact that our brain functions at such a high capacity that it sounds cool, but it causes problems.
Yeah, one of the glitches in Asperger's, and there was a time back, I want to say in the early 2000s, I was diagnosed with Asperger's as well, but I've found a way to really, and we'll talk about this as well, Tucker, I'm sure in your story, is ways to offset some of those challenges where you almost don't spot it unless you know it's there. So I've told people before, that I had this diagnosis, well, you seem so normal.
Right.
And I don't want to go into trying to convince them of it.
Exactly.
It's too much work. But
you're right.
The one thing to point out is, as part of the different wiring in the Asperger's brain, there tends to be a disconnect between the prefrontal cortex and the emotional center of the brain.
Yes.
So it's much easier to relate to the environment using facts, using concrete data, as opposed to that abstract emotional experience. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with clients over the years that, like you were saying, just don't get the emotion of the situation. They want to live in the land of ideas and thoughts, and they can completely miss the fact that somebody else is having an emotional experience because their brain just doesn't read that information.
Exactly. And you're right. So a few of the glitches of Asperger's is that when it comes to social interaction, we don't particularly read facial expressions very well at all. Like you said, we're factual based. So so someone told me the other day, they were like, that I wish I had the message. I had calculated it, but they they told me, they're like, we can do everything in the world. And it took me a minute to realize that I shouldn't have responded the way I did, but I responded with, well, there's this many possible things to do in the world. We have this many years and we can logically do this many a day. So no, we can't do everything in the world. And it was kind of funny, but that's how our brain works is off of facts. So another of the glitches is emotional understanding. The conscious, like it's not that we're disconnected from people in the sense that we don't like them, so we're an asshole. It's that we literally don't connect on that emotional level. Like, for instance, I know personally, I have dated someone for several years and literally just walked off. I was like, well, okay. I mean, this has gotten to a point where it's illogical for us to be together. I'm not happy. You're not happy. You don't benefit me. I don't benefit you. This situation needs to come to an end. And I left, and there was no emotional anguish there because the logic behind it said there shouldn't be. And that's just me personally. I don't know if you experienced that kind of anguish. It's kind of like when someone dies. Like when I go to a funeral, everyone else is crying, and me, I'm just kind of in an uncomfortable situation because to me, the person's dead. Like, they're gone. Crying about it doesn't bring them back. And crying about it, to be honest, is selfish, because we don't cry because they're dead. We cry because we don't personally have access to them when we want it. That's where the pain comes from. It doesn't come from the fact that they're not alive anymore. It comes from the fact that you selfishly want access to that person when you want access to them, and when you don't have that, now all of a sudden it's a problem. And that is where the actual pain comes from. It's like my master told me. He said the day before he died, he told me, he said, everyone's going to die. All I ask is whenever I die, you celebrate my life and don't focus on my death, to embrace the great things that I did while I'm here. Well, logically speaking, that's what I did. So the pain of his loss was a few hours, and then there was no more crying and anguish because it was illogical.
Okay,
Another
jump in
thing,
there for a second, Tucker.
yeah,
There are some people that are listening to this conversation right now that might be thinking, but that's so cold,
yeah,
you know, to not relate to people that way. How can you not feel? Well, again, going back to that disconnect in the brain, it is much more typical for one of two extremes for people with Asperger's. One is that you are attached to things via its intellectual value to you. You know,
hmm
it's stimulating. The facts. I would get attached to people in the past because we'd have awesome conversations.
hmm
And I love that stimulation. But a month could pass before I talked to them again, and I wouldn't miss them.
hmm
And then maybe they would call me and say, "Are you mad at me?" No, why? What's up? What'd you hear? Well, you haven't called me in forever. Well, I didn't have anything I wanted to talk about.
right?
You know, and they didn't get that, and I had to learn the hard way by many people being mad at me that I needed to attend to people and, you know, check in, hey, how you doing, and
Right.
hey, what's new, and show them that they were still on my radar even though I didn't need my bucket filled. And then
Yes.
there's the other extreme where people are emotionally over invested. Some people that are very strong empaths, they
hmm
feel intensely and they get over attached, and they can be very clingy, they can be very needy and not
Yes.
know how to draw those boundaries, and those people can have Asperger's too. You know, it's just a difference of extremes, and there are all points in between as well.
Yes.
So it's important to think that not everybody that has Asperger's is this very Spock-like analytical thought-driven person. Some of us
hmm
are.
Yeah.
And some of us are also very feeling driven at the expense of that intellectual balance.
Yeah.
Everything is anxiety and catastrophe and totally in love. And it's difficult to create that balance where for folks like you and I, Tucker, it's a matter of how do we bring some emotion into the game so
Yeah. It's
that
hard.
people feel heard, they feel that we empathize, that we actually care, and that we recognize they have a heart and emotion matters to them, even though it may not be the first thing to cross our minds when we relate to them. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and it's hard. It really is to have that emotional connection because it's literally like a switch. That when it's required, you can turn it on, and then there's this mask that comes over, and that mask shows an emotional connection to them. And and a lot of times this is where it gets really confusing. It's not that there isn't an emotional connection. It's just that it can be shut down if logic says that that's what needs to be done. And people don't understand that, and they think that it's very cold, but it's not cold. It's like I hate to
It's
put it this
basically
way.
you need to choose to give a crap.
Yeah. I have to. It has
It's
to be.
not automatic.
It has to be logical.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what I tell people sometimes. They're like, well, it's like you're from another world. And I'm like, well, it's not that I'm from another world. It's that there's a possibility that us Aspergians are actually the next evolution of humans. Like, because logically speaking, you get a lot more done if you lack that attachment.
Well, and I'll tell you, there's no data, anthropological or otherwise, that says, hey, these Aspies are the next evolution.
Yeah, it's just a joke in the.
But yeah, it's something that we use amongst ourselves. But one thing I want to point out is when you look at Facebook, when you look at the polls, we are living in a time where people seem to be going out of their way to be more offended, to be much more
Right.
emotionally reactive. So
Yeah.
there is a group of people, Asperger's, autism, otherwise, who are in many ways the opposite end of that, where other people are reacting and being driven by anger and resentment. We're sitting here saying, hang on a second, let's look at the facts.
Yeah.
And we could potentially counterbalance that tendency and keep some rationality in the discourse. So
Yes.
if there's something that we can contribute to where our culture is going, I hope to heck it's in some way our capacity to slam the brakes on emotional overreaction so we don't tear ourselves apart with all of this subjective, self-righteous, overreactive nonsense.
Right.
So if we are part of the evolution, let it be that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it is. It's obliterating illogical action. I mean, when you like, for instance, I'm not getting into politics by any means, and I'm not even going to give a name to who it is I'm talking about. You're just going to know who I'm talking about. You go burning your city down or another city and use racism to try to fix racism, you do nothing but exploit your own ignorance and your own stupidity. Now, like I said, I'm not going to put the name of that group out there, but they actively go around burning cities down and putting up hate everywhere, and they believe that somehow that's going to fix the world because they're idiots. But this right here is something that we as Aspergians are going to sit back and go, okay, you have to remove oneself from the situation in order to logically look at the situation. Because if oneself is within the circle of the situation, that it is not possible to make a logical any logical judgment, because you eventually at some point are going to pull towards your personal preference. Now, how do we racism is a big problem in the world, and there's a lot of things that can be done to fix it, but none of them are blasting it on the news or spreading hate towards other races or doing the thing you don't want done to you to try and make people not do it to you. It don't work that way. But to kind of ease off of that, another thing that a lot of Aspergians do, and this is something that I have a lot of trouble with, is overanalyzation. So one of the things that really stimulates most Aspergian minds is visual thinking. So we a lot of times are known for being able to look at a situation, a business, a machine, whatever it may be, and in our mind make it go and do what it's going to do, and then we can see it break, we can see it work, we can see all the ins and outs of it before we ever actually do it. Einstein was infamous for this. And on my end, this causes a problem when it comes to driving. Like if I'm in a car and I'm driving very, very, very fast, I have I have pinpoint skills. I'm a drifter. I love to drift. I can drive a car at 130, 160 miles an hour. I'm comfortable at 200 miles an hour. It doesn't bother me. But when I get down to 25, 30, 40 miles an hour, now there's a danger, because I begin taking things apart. And this is a lot of Aspies say that this happens. I take apart the strips that are on the road, the yellow lines. I see them lift off the road and I take them apart at a molecular level. Or a sign, I'll see a stop sign and it'll blow up and I'll see every piece of the sign in like this white void where I see all the nuts and bolts. Same thing when you're driving past an 18-wheeler and you look to your left and then all of a sudden the 18-wheeler goes and you take it apart and then it comes back together and then all of a sudden you're in a ditch. Like, no, that right there is something. Now, at a high speed, that can't be done because everything's a blur. But at a low speed, your brain can take that in and it pulls things apart, takes them apart. This is something that I do. Like, this is why I'm good at fixing things. And a lot of Aspies are good at fixing things because you can literally stare at it and in 5 minutes, you know how it works and you know what's wrong with it and you just fix it.
Now, let me give you some contrast to that, because I think you just described my father. Who has his engineering ability was phenomenal. He didn't have to use instructions to put together anything. He would just took the pieces out and he lay them out on the ground and he knew how they went together.
Yeah.
And he would just sit there and do it. And there was one time where he wanted to build a deck on the back of the house. He didn't have a design or anything. He went out there with his tape measure, did some measurements, and did a few drawings, and then he went, had all the lumber cut, and he just came back and built a deck.
Yeah.
Me, I would have to go on YouTube to figure out how to change a light bulb. You know, that stuff is not out, that stuff's completely outside my wheelhouse. I know Nikola Tesla, and I suspect Temple Grandin as well, had that 3D image, like you were describing. They could see it from all angles in their head and then know exactly what needed to happen.
Yeah.
In my case, what I lack in visual acuity, I make up for in auditory awareness. I can break down a person's entire thought process by listening to them talk. I see their words in space like a ticker tape. Mm-hmm. And in reading the words and listening to it, I can say, well, if you switch these around and you organize your words this way, and if you replace this word with that word, this is how it could change your thinking. And I do that in my sleep. It's just a knack that I have that you seem to have visually. So yes. Each person on the spectrum can be very visual, very auditory, or very physical, kinesthetic. There are so many different ways, but it tends to be something complex like you just described. Yeah. And like the example used about the Big Bang Theory is those high-level capacities, which isn't present in everyone. There are some people on the spectrum that are challenged across the board such that it's very difficult to get those gifts out. So we don't want to misrepresent and say that if you have Asperger's, you have some area of obvious giftedness. There are some people where it's more difficult to get at that. But let's get back to kind of the original thing that brought us here together is you take the story of your strengths and challenges and you share that story in many ways like this, but also from the stage where you really empower people to see their adversities as a way to be a blessing in other people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so
sir.
What are the thoughts that you share with people to help them see that?
Well, I take them through parts of my story and I show them the possibilities. But I do more than just show them the possibilities. I entangle, I use quantum physics, believe it or not.
You're already over my head, buddy.
So that's something I don't talk about on camera very much, but I am a theoretical physicist. So
really? No wonder you appreciate Sheldon so much.
Yeah, me and Sheldon, actually that used to be a nickname. People used to call me Sheldon, but they called me it not as a compliment. They called it because I have tendencies to say things that are very cold, but I don't realize they're cold until afterwards. Whenever I take the equation, when I take the conversation, break it into an equation, and actually calculate the factors of emotional intelligence and human engagement instead of computing, then I realize, oh wait, I probably shouldn't have said that.
I need to see that all on a whitebord at some point.
Yeah,
what you just said, so I can understand it better.
You don't want to see it on a whiteboard, I promise you. It's very, very wild. But anyway, I use physics whenever I speak. That's how I connect to people, because I understand that the observation of particles and the style of observation of particles causes it to actually change it to negatively or positively charged, and in turn creating a domino effect affecting other particles within my range of sight. And this can also be affected by sound. So the type of tone that I use my voice, I'll actually fluctuate its vibrations to match the frequency or raise the frequency of the particles in the room. So everyone in the room it's like a literal electrical charge, and they're all on the edge of their seat, and they're just like, wow. Well, it's not because I'm so amazing. It's because I understand the physics behind sound, and I can control the aura, the energy field that my body emits. And I can actually control that aura and force it to emit itself over the crowd and actually change the frequency of the particles that make up their body. So it's a lot more than just a speech. But what I do is I take my trials and tribulations and I explain to people how how I got through them personally and how that can integrate into their personal challenges. Like, for instance, I'm 25 years old. I've suffered from 2 nearly fatal heart attacks due to life-threatening anxiety. I used to go to Walmart and other places, and I would literally have panic attacks that would put me in the hospital simply because I'm in an open space. Like, when I was younger, I used to cling to the wall. Like, everywhere I go, I would walk close to a wall. I didn't like an open void. And I still feel uncomfortable in a void. Like, for instance, going out into the ocean. I've never been in the middle of the ocean, but understanding that there is a darn near limitless void below me bothers me. Like, I having some kind of physical connection to something solid is important to me. And this used to be, I couldn't even walk in the center of the mall because there was a void on both sides, which would create anxiety. And so due to this, I was fired from over 20 different jobs. One of those jobs was at a grocery store. I was bagging groceries, and the customers began flooding in. That sent me into not a panic attack, but the beginning stages of a panic attack, where I start shaking and my body curls up and locks itself like this right here, and my head goes down like that, and I can't break free from it. And due to having a panic attack, my employer, who was looking for a reason to fire me, she came up to me with a check, and she was like, "This is your final check." And she had a write-up slip that stated that I was disruptive and incapable of working around others. And this was just like the final straw for me. So I went home that day, and I took a ski rope, wrapped it around my neck, tied it around a couch, and I just jumped out of the second-story window. And obviously it didn't work because I'm still here. And that wasn't the only case. Like, I've got a shotgun shell sitting right over here, and I could go get it and show it to you. And it was shortly after that. Like, I was weird as a kid. Like, the way that I engage with people now, you would never imagine that at one point I couldn't even walk up and say hello to you without freaking out and shaking and panicking, like you're going to hurt me or something. And these kids, when I was younger, they jumped me, they held me down, they poured gasoline all over my body and in my mouth and my nose, and then they gave me 3 seconds to run, and 6 people with jumbo-sized Roman candles lit them and chased me through the woods, and they were trying to kill me. And that's not the only occasion that happened. I mean, they tried to burn me alive on 2 different occasions.
Man, where the heck did you grow up? I never want to go there.
Arkansas, in the backwoods.
Wait, one question that I have for you around your anxiety is, where are you with that now? Because that is so paralyzing, and now you're going into public places, you're speaking to the masses, you're networking. So where are you at now with all that?
Challenged. I'll put it that way. It never completely goes away until I'm on stage. And I'll explain why it is that happens here shortly. But the way that I actually got here is I was going through this over and over again, just panic attack after panic attack. And I felt like it was better to kill myself because I couldn't be human. I couldn't be normal. I wanted to go shopping. I wanted to get my own clothes. I wanted to be able to go to a grocery store. I wanted to go to a gas station and get a candy bar. I just wanted to be human. And I started watching TED Talks, and it came to a point where when I first saw my first TED Talk, a fire lit in my soul, first of all. And I knew in an instant that I was destined to speak on stage. But then it all hit me. I'm like, who the hell do you think you are? You're an Aspie. Aspies don't become public speakers. We can't do that. It's in our diagnosis that we are not good with people. And so I had to figure out a way to overcome it. I had to. I knew that it's what I was destined to do. So what I did was I was making $179 a week at the time. So I took $50 out of every paycheck. I had a bicycle and a bungee cord. I went to Little Caesars and I got 6 $5 hot and ready pizzas and strapped them to my bicycle. Why not 5? Because that's not enough to do what I was trying to do every day. Why not 7? Because 7 causes the weight distribution to be too much and you will lose your pizza. Just saying. Anyway, so 6 $5 hot and ready pizzas, and I went around town and I found homeless people, and I would sit down beside them and I would give them a pizza and I would say, "Hey, brother, share some wisdom with me. Tell me your story." And they would be dumbfounded. They're like, "What? Someone wants to hear what I have to say and they have pizza? Oh, yeah." And
man, you got a book right there if you took notes when you were listening to those folks.
I do. I actually am going to write. I am writing a book on that. And it was, and in speaking to these people, they shared all kinds of wisdom to me. But I found in all of that anxiety was in the mind. It was never in the diagnosis, and that the anxiety stemmed from fear. Now, what is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. So any form of anxiety in this world is a compilation of self-proclaimed fears. These are illogical fears. Now, being a logical person, you would think anxiety wouldn't be an issue because anxiety is illogical. And that is what's helped me to make that transition, is I realized that if I put the focus on other people, just like when I'm on stage, I tell my story, but no matter who you are, when you're in the audience, you feel like I'm talking about you. And I put the focus on other people and let them do the talking. And I realized that if I listen more and speak less, there's less chance of generating false realities in my mind, which in result cause anxiety. And I began writing down in my journal every day. I'm a public speaker. I speak on this TED stage, like all these details. And then out of nowhere, I was asked to speak on Millionaires Row at Churchill Downs in Kentucky. Like, they called me up from nowhere. Like, I didn't put it out. I didn't tell nobody I wanted to be a public speaker. And it just came up. And they were like, "Hey, we got this fundraiser that we're doing. We're trying to earn $10,000. Would you mind getting up and speaking?" I was like, "Sure." So I got up and I spoke for, I don't know, like 15 minutes and earned over $40,000 for the foundation. And I was like, wow, I might actually be good at this. So where am I now? I still, when I go to events, a lot of people that have been to events and seen me speak, you may have noticed this. And there's actually a live stream of me getting off stage at the event ServX that I just spoke at. The live stream, you see people lining up to come say hi to me. And if you pay attention, you can see me, my eyes darting left to right and my hand doing this, like shaking, because I am embracing it. And I'm like, okay, this fear is not real. I'm not scared of this. I'm just cornered. And I can't, there's no exit. And people are hugging me for more than 5 seconds, which is unacceptable. And they're holding my hand, which is another unacceptable thing.
Yep. Never present in public unless you have pepper spray. That's how you keep those. That's how you keep those people back, man. Well,
I have bodyguards. That's what I use. I have every event that I go to, I have bodyguards, and they're not hired hands. They're people who know me, and they know at what point I will snap. And because I'm one of people, like, I'm as nice as they come, but if I snap, it's not pretty.
Yeah, so, if you get overloaded, you go into fight or flight.
Yeah, and there is no flight. So and it's sensory overload. Too many different sounds coming at one time. Too many different stimuli. Like, if your hands are sweating and you touch me, no.
Man, that people don't realize how many different textures a human hand has. It can be, because I have very, touch sensitivity. It can be clammy, it can be cold, it can be warm, it can be scratchy. Somebody with calluses, if I shake their hand, you might as well have pressed my hand against a belt sander. It is a horrible feeling, and you take your hand away and you're like, I need to rub this on something.
And you do.
You rub it on your shirt, you rub it on your pant leg, and people say, well, do you think I got cooties? And then, you have to go into an explanation of sensory sensitivity and how you have difficulty regulating this input, and you need to give yourself deep pressure so that you can alleviate that overwhelm. And man.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, there's only certain textures that we can wear. Like, for instance, the shirt you're wearing, give me 1 second.
Yeah, well, he's off camera. I wear stuff that is very light, like 100% cotton if I can get it. Wear sweats.
The exact same shirt.
Telling you, man. And if I can avoid dress clothes, even the stuff that is, $150, supposed to be the best, most breathable, no. The simplest cotton stuff I would live in so that I don't get exhausted simply from the overwhelm of what is on my body. In the old days, kids, ripping the tags out of their shirts and their pants. And now there are some brands that the tags are gone. No more tag.
Yeah, and that's like this shirt. Like this shirt right here, it has a tag, but when I wear this, I have to wear it I have to wear something else, or I just remove the tag. This is a brand new shirt. But this is polyester and Egyptian cotton. And it's one of them things. Like if you look at its pattern, it's the exact same shirt you're wearing. It's just different color. So, and you're right, it is. The textures are overwhelming. And so where am I now exactly? I still struggle. It's just that I figured out certain mental practices and certain things that I can do to disrupt that thought process, because that's the key. The key to overcoming anxiety of any kind is a mental shift to disrupt how you're feeling. Because, for example, if me and you are sitting there and you are panicking because the texture of the rail that you just slid your hand across was not right, and you're over here like doing all this trying to get that feeling out of your stimuli, and I grab you and throw you off of a bridge, all of a sudden on the way down, you ain't thinking, oh man, it's so bad.
And this is not a recommended intervention, by the way. This is just a metaphor. Okay.
No, it's not. But where that derives from is a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman.
Oh yeah, that movie's awesome too.
The movie and the book were both phenomenal. But since you've seen the movie, do you remember when they were on the bridge over Cherry Creek? It was Cherry Creek. It was on campus. And Dan runs up to Socrates, and he's like, man, dude, I forgot that I had something really important. I got tryouts that I have to make. Can we make this quick? And Socrates goes, oh, yeah. Throws him off the bridge. And then he just walks off. And Dan gets out of the water, and he's like mad. He's like, man, what is wrong with you? You're out of your mind. And Socrates goes, took a lifetime of practice. And he's like,
and he asked him, when you were falling over the bridge and in the water, were you thinking about the practice you have to get to? Were you thinking about your groceries and everything you had to do? He said, no, you were fully present in the experience you were having. And
you even had a word for it. And what was it?
Ah!
Yeah. You even had a word for it. Ah! And you have to take your mind and shift it into what is essential, what is actually going on in the moment. One of the most important things learned from that movie is that there are no ordinary moments. That you are here. The time is now. You are this moment. You're not what happened yesterday. You're not what you did in the past. Your past does not define you. It refines you. You have to learn to embrace the here and now, enjoy the moment, and be this thing that you know you're supposed to be, which is simply a glimpse in time. Because, look, if you spend 10 seconds worrying about something, that's 10 seconds you're never going to get back from your life. Plus, you release cortisol in the blood, which causes your lifespan to actually shorten. Your thought processes become illogical. Your actions become illogical. And you basically just wasted 10 out of the 86,400 seconds that you have each and every day. So that's where I am right now, is practicing that on a daily basis, and going and speaking on stage. When I'm up there, all of the anxiety is gone. I have no fear. Now, that's crazy. I'm somebody who doesn't function in front of people.
Oh, no. One of the more comfortable places for me to be is on stage.
Yes, is to be on stage. Well, there's a reason for that. And it's because there's two reasons for it. One, it's living within your purpose, doing something you know you're designed to do. There is no fear because you know you're not going to make a mistake. Everything you do, even if you don't say the right word, it's not a mistake. It's what you were supposed to do because you're living within your purpose. You are doing what you were designed to do. So there is no need to feel that anxiety. But secondly, you are not one-on-one with somebody who wants you to look them in the eyes and wants you to give them all your attention. It's a broadened attention. It's a broadened state. I'm not speaking with one individual. I am speaking to a plethora of individuals. It is an entire crowd, and I can switch between one person. And if I feel uncomfortable looking at this person, I just switch to this one and to that.
It's a sea of foreheads. You don't have to make eye contact with any of them.
Yeah, and there's actually something that I teach Aspies how to make eye contact, because that's one of the biggest issues we have. And it's literally tricking the mind of the person you're talking to into believing that you are making eye contact. Now, how is this done? You practice by first staring at people's forehead, and secondly, staring at their nose, and then you actually stare at their lower eyelid and the innards of their eye. Now, none of this is eye contact, but if you do this, you switch between the forehead, the nose, and the inner eye in conversation, it makes their brain believe that you are making eye contact and that the eye movements are actually thought processes, but they're actually purposeful actions that allow you to generate a false sense of eye contact, which in turn provides comfort to the other person, relieving tension between the two people. So that's a big thing that you practice. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm able to speak on stage, is just because it's what I'm designed for. It's why I'm here to share messages that resonate not only truth but power. And it's not about me being powerful or being someone's leader or anything of that nature. It's literally, humans have to wake up. And if nobody stands up and shares the messages that are going to be required for humanity to become the species that it is designed to be and not the parasite that it has become, we have to share those messages. And I believe us Aspies are designed to do that. Does that answer?
We are the messengers of the new era of human evolution. Dude, you got to get yourself a wireless mic that you can bring with you on interviews. So when you're done talking, you just drop it on the camera.
Here, I normally use my phone as the mic, so like.
Because we got to hear boom right on top of the desk. Now, yeah. Tucker, this has been even more amazing than I knew it would be. This has been fantastic. I thank you so much for bringing your heart, your wisdom, your story, your vision. And I want you to drop the link to that video of your presentation that we mentioned earlier, so that people that have been watching this can see it for themselves and just know what a powerhouse you are on there. Is there a digital presence that you have, a Facebook page, a website, or otherwise, that people can use to track you down?
Yes, you can go to tuckerbeardon.com, short, sweet, and simple. And you can see me speak on stage. You can read parts of my story. You can see the reviews that other people have left about me on there. You can actually see every single episode of my show, because I actually have a show where I interview people. I interview business owners around the world to find the why behind their business. We've had big dogs on there like Manny Lopez, Tom Ziegler, the son of Zig Ziglar, things of that nature on there. And this is all my website. There will be a tab at the top that says shows or Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live, something of that nature. You'll see it when you get on there. And it gives you all the episodes of Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live. I have a show called Tucker's Morning Motivation. I do it every day at 9 a.m. I take weekends off sometimes, but you can get all those that are on there as well. I have a Facebook page that I don't use very often, but it does have like 20,000 followers. That's Tucker Beardon Inspiring the World. But my main Facebook page is just Tucker Beardon, and I do most of my stuff through there. If you'd like to connect with me, it's very simple. I can actually drop contact information in here. I love when people give me a phone call just to ask questions and everything. And if I'm not able to get to you, I will get back to you. And this phone's a piece of crap. If it goes to voicemail as soon as you call, it's not because I ignored your call. It's because the phone didn't notify me and you need to send me a text message. So there's that. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to how to get in touch with me. I am on YouTube as well, but I just recently started my YouTube channel, so there's not like a ton of content.
Type all that out for me, brother. Send it to me, and I will cut and paste in the show notes so people can find you whenever, wherever, everywhere at their leisure. So thanks again, man. This has been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to being on your show
Definitely.
very soon.
Awesome, bro. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute honor. Everybody, thanks for watching or listening to The Mindset King with today's guest, Tucker Beardon. It's been absolutely awesome, and if you benefited from this, chances are you know somebody just like you who can benefit as well. So please share often, share liberally, and we will catch you next time on The Mindset King. Take care, everybody.